The world is on edge. On September 9, 2025, President Donald Trump urged the European Union to impose a 100% tariff on Chinese goods. This move signals a potential trade war with global consequences. A tariff is a tax on imports, making foreign products more expensive. The goal pushed consumers to buy domestic goods, but it also raises prices for everyone. The US has promised to match any EU tariffs on China, putting huge pressure on European leaders. This isn't just about economics, it's about power and alliances. The proposal came during tense talks on sanctions and global security, showing the US sees trade as a tool for political leverage. A 100% tariff is a dramatic escalation, shaking the foundations of global trade. Financial markets are rattled and companies worldwide are bracing for impact. European and Asian economies, especially those reliant on both the US and China, are caught in the middle. If the world's two largest economies clash, others will suffer collateral damage. The stakes are high, and every nation must tread carefully. The next moves could reshape international trade for years. The world is watching, waiting for what comes next. The US is using tariffs to pressure China, and indirectly Russia, to end the war in Ukraine. China's purchase of Russian oil helps fund Russia's military, so the US hopes to cut off that support by hurting China's economy. A 100% tariff would double the price of Chinese goods in the West, slashing sales and threatening jobs in China. China's government has condemned the proposal, calling it unfair and a violation of trade norms. The US has already imposed smaller tariffs on India for similar reasons, signaling a broader strategy. By rallying the EU to join, the US aims to present a united front against Russia. China sees this as an attempt to contain its growth and influence. If these tariffs go into effect, China is expected to retaliate with its own taxes on American and European goods. This tit-for-tat could spiral into a full-blown trade war, damaging economies worldwide. The conflict is no longer just about Ukraine, it's about global power. The world's factory is under threat, and the consequences will be felt everywhere. The stakes are enormous, and the outcome is uncertain. The next steps could define the future of global trade. Europe faces a tough choice. The EU is a key US ally but also relies heavily on trade with China. If Europe joins the US in imposing tariffs, China will likely retaliate, hurting European businesses and jobs. European leaders prefer diplomacy over economic confrontation, fearing a trade war could trigger a recession. The EU is crafting its own targeted sanctions on Russia but is wary of extreme measures. South Korea is also anxious. Its economy depends on both China and the US siding, with one risks angering the other, threatening vital industries like electronics and cars. Both Europe and South Korea are searching for a middle path to protect their economies and alliances. A trade war would disrupt supply chains, making everything from cars to electronics more expensive and complicated. The balancing act is delicate, with no easy answers. The world's interconnected economies make every decision risky. Leaders must weigh security, prosperity, and stability in a rapidly changing landscape. These tariffs are a direct response to the escalating war in Ukraine. Russia's recent attacks have intensified calls for action in the West. The US believes cutting off Russia's energy revenue by targeting its biggest customers, China and India, could force Putin to negotiate. Trade is now a weapon, not just an economic tool. The US is asking allies to accept economic pain for a shared security goal. With diplomacy stalled, economic pressure is the new front line. The war in Ukraine has cast a long shadow, forcing nations to make hard choices. The outcome will shape global relations for years to come. The global economy is deeply interconnected, and these tariffs threaten to unravel it. The EU has reduced its reliance on Russian energy, but cutting ties completely is slow and costly. Meanwhile, the US is boosting its own energy exports to Europe, seeking both profit and influence. Trade relationships are complex. The US and China exchange hundreds of billions in goods, and the EU's trade with China is even larger. European companies fear losing access to China's market if a trade war erupts. Any move risks retaliation, making European exports more expensive and less competitive. The US is also negotiating with India, adding to the uncertainty. Mixed signals from Washington leave allies unsure of America's true intentions. Every decision in this tangled web carries global consequences. The world is navigating uncharted territory. If this trade war escalates, everyone will feel it. Prices for everyday goods will rise, squeezing family budgets. Jobs are at risk as global supply chains break down. Export-driven economies like Germany and South Korea are especially vulnerable. Beyond economics, a trade war erodes trust and cooperation on global challenges like climate change and security. Nations may retreat into protectionist blocs, making the world more divided and unstable. The future is uncertain. Will leaders escalate or find common ground? The choices made now will shape global trade and alliances for years. Calm leadership and open dialogue are urgently needed. The world is watching, hoping for a step back from the brink.